Hey, Dave Dynasty here for the Tommy Wildfire Rich School of Wrestling in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. You know, I've spent years in the wrestling business, from wrestler to promoter, and now as the host of the Dave Dynasty Show. To be successful in the wrestling business, solid training from experienced instructors is mandatory if you're going to make it today. And that's what you'll get at the Tommy Wildfire Ridge School of Wrestling. Not only instruction from former NWA World Heavyweight Champion Tommy Wildfire Ridge, but many other big-name wrestlers, managers, and referees. And it gets better. Tommy Wildfire Ridge School of Wrestling will provide in-ring training and personal character training with all practices recorded on high-definition cameras. They have over 2 tons of weightlifting equipment and tanning beds located in an indoor sports facility that will host monthly wrestling events, bringing in names big enough to ensure that you, as a beginning student, will get seen. This school has it all. For anyone interested in the Tommy Wildfire Rich School of Wrestling, call 336-862-5528 today. Once again, that is 336-862-5528. Ask for Chris, and you will immediately be on your way to your career in the wrestling business. Once again, call Chris at the Tommy Wildfire Ridge School of Wrestling at 336-862-5528.
The talking, nagging, lucha watching, puro viewing, indie supporting, drinking, cursing, son of a gun of a podcast. Join former pro wrestler and promoter Dave Dynasty and co-host Ike Isaacs as they talk wrestling and interview those within the business, bringing positivity back to pro wrestling. This is the Dave Dynasty Show.
Greetings and welcome to the Dave Dynasty Show. This is your host, Dave Dynasty. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you're having a good week, holiday weekend. Happy birthday, America. What better way to spend celebrating the birthday of America than watching professional wrestling, than listening to a professional wrestling podcast, and celebrating the worst of professional wrestling, right? You know what I'm talking about. Today we have a great interview with the founder of WrestlCrap, RD Reynolds. Now, most of you know him as being the founder of WrestlCrap and as writing books and all. To me, it'll always be the real deal RD Reynolds, professional wrestling manager who was put in diapers, who was hit in the face with pies, who was tarred and feathered. I don't know. He did everything, right? He was your prototypical independent manager in Indiana. He, worked. I saw him work a lot for PWI, Diamond Dan. Saw him all over the place, at Columbus and Hope, all the little shows they did around the area. RD was always entertaining, always fun. It was amazing, right? He played the role so well, but we got a great interview with him today, right? He talks about his wrestling career, his managing career. He talks about finding the founding of WrestleCrap, writing his book, talks about all those things. What a fun interview we got, huh? An Indiana legend, RD Reynolds, right here on the Dave Dynasty Show today. Hey, while you're here, if you joined us on iTunes, or YouTube, or wherever you're listening, take a moment. Click that subscribe button so that you don't miss the Dave Dynasty Show each and every week. We have lots and lots of great interviews all the time. You can go back to the archive, see all the great names that we've interviewed. Lots of great wrestlers. Lots of Midwest and Indiana legends. These guys are great. They deserve more recognition. And that's what we strive to do, right? We strive to bring a little attention to these guys and preserve the history of Indiana wrestling, of Midwest wrestling. And we do branch out sometimes, right, into other areas. But we try to focus on the area as best we can. So we'd also like to take a moment to tell you to visit DaveDynasty.com. From there, you can find all of our social media links, all of our links to all of our affiliates and sponsors, including a new sponsor that has come on board beginning of this week. We are so excited for this one. You heard the commercial, right? You heard the commercial at the top of the show. How amazing is it? The Tommy Wildfire Rich School of Wrestling. You heard Tommy Rich here on the Dave Dynasty Show a few weeks ago. You heard him break the news, say that he is opening a school, and it's coming. They're opening August 5th. and the school has come on board to sponsor the Dave Dynasty Show. We're partnering with them, working with them on lots of things. We could not be more excited. Hey, check them out. Listen to that commercial. Jot down that phone number. Call them. If you have dreams of being a pro wrestler, do it the right way. Go to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Let Tommy Rich train you, and do it the right way. Thank you for coming on board. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing and supporting. We're going to take another break, and we're going to hear from one of our other sponsors. When we come back, we will have that fun interview with the real deal, RD Reynolds. Dick the Bruiser, take us there.
We'll be right back.
Hey, thank you for supporting our sponsors here on the Dave Dynasty Show, including 123 Pins. Visit them at 123pins.us for a great selection of pins, enamel stickers, mugs, hats, shirts, you name it, they have it for the wrestling and pop culture fan. And if you go and place an order and enter the promo code DAVE, D-A-V-E, you receive 25% off your order. So go visit our sponsor, 123 Pins, at 123pins.us.
And welcome back to the Dave Dynasty Show. I'm your co-host, Ike Isaacs, and today I am joined with someone who is a bit different than what you might be expecting for us to talk to today. We have our friend with us, RD Reynolds. How are we doing today?
I am blessed, and I'm always thankful when someone says that whenever the lead in is he's different. I that would probably be the understatement, I'm sure. Whenever people are listening to the show and they're like, "Wait, who? What? Why?"
Exactly.
I get it.
No, it's perfectly fine, because here's the thing. Different is good. And in Dave Dynasty Show, and the Dave Dynasty Show motto is that if you're different, we want you on the show because you're going to draw some people.
People are flies. I'm not sure which. So.
Right, exactly. But hey, we're cool with either, because if they're listening, it's a listen, right?
That's right.
All right, so we're just going to jump right into it. So a pretty easy question, so don't get too excited. Where are you from?
I am originally from southeastern Indiana, down by Cincinnati. Oh, wait. Of course, I mean I'm from Jupiter, Florida, home of the Burt Reynolds Dinner Theater. So, yes, this is much better.
Right. Perfect. And so with all things in this world, you have your first memories, right? So obviously, as someone who's as big into wrestling as you and I are, we have our first memories of wrestling. So what are your first memories of wrestling?
My first memories of wrestling were that my buddy, my best friend, this would have been, grade school, early high school, I said, "Hey, why don't you come over and we'll play some video games tonight?" He's like, "No can do. I'm watching wrestling tonight." I was like, "Wrestling?" Because I had no idea what it even was. I knew nothing about it. My parents didn't follow it. My family didn't follow it. But so he told me that he was going to be watching this wrestling. I was like, "Well, this guy's my best friend. Maybe it would be wise if I actually watched an episode of this to see exactly what it was all about." And it was primetime wrestling that I watched that night, and it was a British Bulldogs match. And at that, I was absolutely taken. So the Bulldogs were awesome. I mean, Davey Boy Dynamite Kid, they were like so amazing and so far ahead of everyone else, specifically in the WWF at the time. But I mean, it was just like watching this whole new world opening to me. And I was like, holy, cow, that's amazing what they're doing. And I totally, hook, line, and sinker. I think I would have dropped out of following wrestling, though. Even as great as the Bulldogs were, the Bulldogs got hurt. Dynamite got hurt in early '87, and he was kind of a shell of himself after that, and was gone, I think, later in that year. And I think I probably would have quit following wrestling, but on a slightly later, it was on a different primetime. I know it wasn't the exact same one, but on a primetime, I was introduced to Bobby the Brain Heenan, And at that, I was completely hooked because I love Bobby Heenan is my all-time favorite wrestling personality. No one else is even close because he was just so funny, such a smarmy, jerk, but he was so awesome because he was so funny, and he was the very epitome of the guy you love to hate. Yeah. And he was just awesome. Just love Bobby Heenan. That's why. Those would be my first two memories of wrestling.
Absolutely. So when you got hooked with wrestling, when was it exactly that you wanted to have a bigger part in it? Was there a part in your life where you're just like, this is something that I want to expand upon and do more with?
I watched Bobby Heenan, and I was like, I want to be Bobby Heenan in the worst conceivable way. I wanted to go out and just yell at people. I wanted to go out and be a smart aleck to people. I wanted to go out and... The great thing about Heenan was, and if you watch those old primetime episodes, you can really see it. He's the brain, but he's never afraid to be made to look like a complete fool.
Yeah.
And I've always found that to be something very... I thought that was one of the great parts of his character, is that he could be the guy you hate, and he could be absolutely serious. I've been watching a lot of primetimes recently when Ken Patera showed up. And that was a great angle in the beginning. It all kind of failed because Patera's body failed on him. But the beginning of that angle was so awesome because Heenan would be funny. He would never be funny when it came to Patera or someone that he didn't like. The Bobby Heenan character should have shown fear in. And Ken Patera was one of those guys. He would not joke or be, funny about Patera because he was scared. But I just loved that Bobby Heenan character. I loved it. And I desperately thought, man, if I could be a pro wrestling manager, that would be so much fun. For one, it would work for me because I am about the least athletically gifted person on planet Earth. So I knew I couldn't get in the ring really and be a wrestler. That thought crossed my mind, but it would have never really worked out because I'm just not athletically gifted. The one thing that didn't quite work out is I'm like 6'5", and so when I was a manager on the indie scene, it looked so ridiculous because I would just tower over everyone. But it was fun, the little bit of that I got to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, like you said, when you were doing managing, that sounds kind of intimidating, especially if someone's like, hey, be my manager, but you're like towering over them.
And I towered over like everyone because it's 6'5", I'm generally taller than most people. And, even guys in the wrestling business, especially in the indie scene, a lot of them are shorter. And that was just kind of the thing. I'd always be about, a half foot taller than everyone. And it was absurd. And I never really, that was one thing with my character. I never really figured out, okay, how do I do this that it would make sense? That I would be this giant guy. I mean, I would be clumsy, of course. Whenever I'd walk in, when I'd climb into the ring with my men, a lot of times I would fall, trip over the ropes, and fall on my face. That was one of the things I loved to do, is just act like I was the clumsiest person. It wasn't even so much an act, although I did play it up. So
you're just like, just play with it, go.
Absolutely.
So definitely, like with all things, when you're a wrestler or if you're a manager, getting into the business can be difficult. So how did you get your start in being a part of wrestling?
A guy that's actually a dear friend of mine now, by the name of Jeff Cohen. In the mid '90s, he had decided he was a wrestling photographer for Bill Apter in the Apter mags, and he decided he wanted to be a wrestling promoter, and he wanted to make the wrestling like old school, old time, vintage pro wrestling. And this was when ECW was starting to hit. But that's not what he wanted. He wanted it to be old time wrestling. And so he was running shows at the Tyndall Armory downtown Indianapolis. And my buddy and I were huge wrestling fans. We would drive, all around the Midwest going to WWF shows, WCW shows. Went to Chicago, went to Dayton. I went to Chicago for a Spring Stampede, went to Dayton for the first King of the Ring. Of course, we went to WrestleMania 8 here in Indianapolis. But he was running these wrestling shows, and my buddy and I would always get front row seats, and we would just heckle. I mean, it was like the Muppets, Statler and Waldorf, and we would just sit there and heckle guys, nonstop. And what happened was, Jeff would be out there and he'd be wearing a really nice suit. Outside of the wrestling business, I mean, he was a very successful real estate guy. And he'd come in wearing these just beautiful suits, and we would just start chanting as soon as he showed up, "Nice suit, Jeff. Is it a rental?" And we would just continually do things like that, mock him. If guys came out and they were, you could tell they weren't really working their upper bodies at the gym, we would chant buggy whips, like he has buggy whip arms, and we would do all this stuff. We would just continually, mock and heckle. And eventually Jeff, I guess, I don't know if it was Jeff or who it was backstage, just said, these guys are a problem. We need to do something with them. And Jeff, instead of throwing us out, which is what he probably should have done, he actually said, "Look, you guys are obviously really funny. Would you help us out? We need some help." We're like, "Okay, what do you need?" And he was just like, "I don't know. What skills do you have besides sitting here and mocking?" And I was like, "I can write. I have a journalism degree." And he was like, "Would you take a crack at doing our newsletters, or our programs?" So it's just an 8.5 by 11 folded over. It says Championship Wrestling of Indianapolis and blah blah blah. Here's who's on tonight's card. This guy's facing this guy, and do a little backstory, maybe do a bio, whatever.
Yeah.
I said, sure, we would do that. So we made a complete mockery of that as well. And that's actually what got me into real trouble the first time. A guy by the name of Mike Samples was running the show, and he was billed as the world's most popular wrestler. Okay, I don't know how this was the case that, no one outside of Indianapolis, had really heard of Mike Samples, let alone him being popular. But he was the booker at that point, and so we had a bio on him. But at that point, now that I'm thinking about it, at that point he was the top heel in the promotion, his top bad guy, and so we did a bio on him. And the bios would always say, give some kind of past history that we would just make up. Like when we had a guy from Japan, I remember, we said, he trained with, Fu Manchu, and it was time to say sayonara to the dojo and come to CWA. And with Samples, we said that he formerly worked at Orange Julius, number 473 in Boise, Idaho. And he was not happy about that, because obviously it was a shot and saying, hey, this guy was just a jabroni. He was working at an Orange Julius. Now he's here. So we actually got in a lot of trouble about that. But somehow one thing led to another. I was able to do color commentary because we had a weekly TV show with Cohen. So we had that weekly TV show, local, in Indianapolis, and I was doing color commentary as a good guy, as RD. I think it was the real deal. I think that was it. And then whenever Jeff got out of the business, then I met some other friends and worked for some other indie promotions. Dan Garza. Diamond Dan, as he is known around these parts. He actually still has a hotline. Can I show his hotline for him on this show? Can I do that, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
That hotline, that wrestling hotline, and you think, oh man, well, you're talking about something that was 20 years ago. No. That hotline has existed for it's 2017, so it's existed for over 20 years. And that hotline number that you can call right now is 317-335-4688. That's 317-335-HOTT. Hot. 317-335-4688. Do it now. I mean, once you're done listening to this fine program, of course.
That is fantastic. Do you just know that off the top of your head?
Yes, because we promoted it like nonstop on the shows. It's kind of like, I don't know if you remember the old WCW hotline. Like, a lot of people remember that number, 1-900-909-9900, right? Yeah. I remember that one too, but that one's long since out of business. Gene isn't making money still. Although, he really should. He really should find out what that number is and get it back and just run a hotline. I guarantee Mean Gene would make money if he were to do that. The 317-335-4688, that's a free hotline. So no, you don't have to ask your parents' permission before calling. You can just do it.
That's just funny. That's just funny. It's like you just knew that off the top of your head, so I'm probably gonna have to call that later, just to see if it's still real. Just
to verify that it actually exists. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's probably what I'm gonna have to do later. Oh yeah. Gosh. Anyways, other than that, just off topic. No, so definitely, like you've told like a couple stories there about like how you kind of needled your way into this, I suppose you could say, because it definitely seems like you were a little infamous for a little bit there because you were heckling people and whatnot. But eventually, with everything you were doing and being a manager, you gained some local fame.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tell
a little bit.
Yeah.
Tiny bit,
Tell us how that was and how that kind of started, and how you kind of got your way into that and what that was like.
I was on the weekly show when I was a babyface announcer, and I just hated it. It just wasn't me, and it's not something Bobby Heenan would have done. That's what I was always thinking. Okay, what would Bobby Heenan do? So I turned heel and came out and told the people that I'm RD Reynolds, real deal RD Reynolds. I am the illegitimate nephew of Burt Reynolds. And Burt Reynolds at the time was not, he was kind of like in a dark stage of his career. This was right before Boogie Nights hit. And he kind of had hit his career renaissance. And so I came out and I had a poster of him and I would unroll it. And at the bottom, it explained what my mission for Uncle Burt was. And Uncle Burt wanted to expand his dinner theaters from Jupiter, Florida. He wanted to, open a string of them all throughout the Midwest. And the way he was going to do that is to send me, his illegitimate nephew, to wrestling arenas to take those wrestling arenas over and convert those into Burt Reynolds dinner theaters. That was the story. And then I would just come out, it was something completely absurd. My stable name, we were trying to come up with what the name of the stable that I would have, Bobby Heenan had the family, and all that. And so we came up with Uncle Bert's, one of his big movies was, of course, Cannonball Run. So my team was the Cannonballers. And I would explain how, just like in the movie Cannonball Run, that had all the stars in the heavens, all the stars in Hollywood were in that movie. That's exactly what the Cannonballers were. I had all the stars of the Midwest wrestling scene that were wanting to be in my clique. So we did that. We had some fun with that. There were some people that got really angry with me. Specifically, one time I came out with a clothespin on my nose and explained that the reason I was doing that is because it smelled like a urinal. And I looked at all the people in the crowd and I said, and I totally understand why. So people would get very angry. They would, I remember one time and of course it's just some little lark thing I was doing, this was, I was at a bowling alley and there were some guys there that recognized me from the wrestling show, and I had to skedaddle pretty quick because they did not quite get that, the guy that was going bowling on a Saturday afternoon was not the same character, so to speak. So
they didn't have that curtain lift that everybody else had for a little bit there. They were just like, oh, all right.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And then, was able to wind up Diamond Dan started working with Rip Rogers in OVW. And we would always run shows in Hope, Indiana. And Hope's just this little town. It's, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes south, maybe an hour south of Indianapolis. And just a little town in the middle of nowhere. But they would run wrestling shows there. And this was even before OVW. They would we would draw really big there. And I have never quite understood why. But we would get, 500, at least 500 people to the show. And eventually it wound up being OVW came in. That was WWF's farm system at the time, Jim Cornette and Rip Rogers down in Louisville. WWF would send their people, like if they were doing a rehab stint, they would have them go down to OVW and rehab until they were back in ring shape. So it's not unlike if a Major League Baseball pitcher, has arm issues or something, and they'll send them down to, AA, AAA, and just have them get back into for the main roster. And at the time, I'll never forget it. The Big Show was down there. Mark Henry was down there. And so they had asked if I would, they were going to bring in OVW, Mark Henry, Big Show, these big names. Now it's like, okay, well, that's cool. I hope we'll get a good show. I'm not going to be on this show because I'm not in OVW. And apparently one of the guys in Hope, the building manager or whatever, said, well, RD is going to be on the show, right? And they were like, what? They're like, yeah, we love that guy. We love to see, we love to scream at him. We'd love to hate him. So he's got to be on the show. So that's how I wound up doing, managing Mark Henry against the Big Show. It was very surreal. That was still a very surreal night. At the end of the match, I got chokeslammed by the Big Show. I landed terribly because I did not know how to take it. And that poor guy, if I ever run into Big Show, I've said for 20 years I'd love to just go up to him and apologize for completely deadlifting him and not knowing what I was doing. But I landed very awkwardly on my hip. And I was like, man, I was afraid I had broken my hip. I didn't. I was just sore for about a week. But I was like, okay, I think there's other things in wrestling I can do aside from being a pro wrestling manager. So
yeah,
I will say that night was really that night was really weird in hindsight for a lot of reasons, because not only was I manage these people that I had seen on Monday Night Raw. This was amazing. But there was a guy named Leviathan in the locker room, and he would, of course, go on to become Dave Bautista. And it was just so strange. Like I had gone to the movies and I had seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And anytime Drax is on the scene, I'm like, I can't believe I shared a dumpy little locker room with this man in the middle of Hope, Indiana. And I always think, man, my life has been very interesting. So
that's kind of a weird sentence. I shared a locker room in Hope, Indiana with Dave Bautista.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Like, I mean, much less even saying the word Indiana and Batista in the same sentence. Like, I mean, that's a strange one. I think that should be like a T-shirt. Like.
Yes, exactly. So. But it was really interesting, But that was once I did that, and I nearly saw my hip get broken. I'm like, yeah, let's go with the other stuff that you're doing. People seem to enjoy it more anyway, and you have less chance to get injured.
Yeah, really though, you do. So then obviously that was kind of like your the start for your kind of departure from managing and that kind of side of wrestling. So when was it that you actually made that transition completely?
Well, I had actually been working on my website, WrestleCrap.com, for a little bit prior to that night. And it was something I was like, I'm just going to, this makes a lot more sense for me to just, hang out and just do, let's just do this, this WrestleCrap thing, this internet thing, and see what happens with it. Because we had some people, and I had never, in the 17 years I've been running WrestleCrap, I never look at stats or anything. I think one time I ever looked, how many page views or whatever. But I was just like, let's just see if people like what I'm writing about. And people really seemed to dig it. And it was fun. And I was, getting emails from these people all over the world and everything. And I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. Let's just focus on this and just, see what happens with it. And I've been blessed, like I said, for 17 years to be able to run the site and do some books and have some fun, meet some really cool people. So
absolutely. So then, for those who aren't kind of familiar with your website, you want to give them kind of like a synopsis or an overview of what all they can go on there and see?
Sure. It's WrestleCrap.com, and it's the very worst of pro wrestling. Started at April 1st, 2000. And it was something where I just wanted to go and write screen captures, which at the time, at 2000, that was, it wasn't really cutting edge, but I mean, it was not a lot of people were doing that. It was, you needed to have a pretty hefty system in order to do it. Now you can do it on like an iPad or something, there's a phone, there's nothing to it. But I mean, you had to really do some work. There was no YouTube back at the time. So I would go and I'd write about these generally obscure, what I thought were obscure, terrible wrestling angles and characters like the gobbledygooker, had hatched out of an egg, or the Shockmaster who fell through, the wall whenever he was debuting wearing a glittery Stormtrooper helmet. All this stuff that I was like, man, did I imagine this stuff? And so what I had to do is, like I said, there was no YouTube. So I would literally go through my stacks and stacks of VHS tapes, find those clips, digitize some pictures, and then write and say, okay, this is what happened. This is when it happened. And then I would just make like little stupid jokes about it. And people, excuse me, really seemed to dig it. And it was really cool, that people thought, oh, I thought I was imagining that too. There really was a guy that came out of this egg. And it was a lot of fun. It was fun to just be able to go and unearth some stuff that people were like, you know what, I was there. I remember that. So it was really neat to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of what WrestleCrap.com is all about. Is trying to give people the whole thing with WrestleCrap is I just want to make people laugh. And it doesn't matter if it's one person, it doesn't matter if it's 10,000 people. The goal is always, if I can make someone laugh today, then it's been a good day. So
certainly. And again, for people who don't know what that is, just go check it out. Don't hurt to type it in your iPhone or your Google engine, because trust me, you're gonna like it. Especially if you like wrestling, you're more than likely gonna like it. Sorry, quick little plug for you. But
I appreciate that very much.
But definitely, it's, I've been on the site before, and I've kind of, sifted through before, and and it's very interesting because, especially back, like you said, in the days before YouTube, where you couldn't really, find just random videos on the internet to that extent, it's like you really had to work to do what you were doing.
Yeah, it was funny because I would spend like so much of my time. Like, I would just go to different video stores in the area, and I would just go and look and see, okay, what wrestling tapes do they have? And I did not want like a WrestleMania tape, because that's going to be, that's something that's very, something everybody's seeing. I was always trying to find something that was a little more obscure, a little more random. And so that's when I would love to find those, tapes that were really hard to come by, especially WCW tapes back then. They were not the easiest things to come by. I mean, if a video store had any wrestling tapes, they're going to have primary WWF tapes.
Yeah.
And you may get a WCW tape or two, but it's going to be the exception, not the rule. And I was desperate to try and find any tapes with Cheatham, the one-eyed midget, and, I would find that, or I would have tapes that I had taped, or, in the old days you would do tape trading as well for people that would just make duplicates of whatever you were looking for. So it was a lot of work that now the work isn't going out and driving around trying to find VHS tapes. The work now, because we've been doing it for 17 years, is trying to find things that are, really, you're looking at really obscure stuff now. Generally, although there have been a couple that are coming up that I'm like, man, how have I never inducted this before? So
Definitely. So then, other than also kind of on the same page of what you've done and like what work you do, you've also written some books. You care to tell us a little bit about those as well?
Sure, absolutely. I used to do a mailbag section on the site. Again, this was before not only YouTube, but it was before any real social media. It was before Facebook or Twitter or whatever. So, like if I do like a Q&A, I just throw something up on my Facebook page and let people just ask whatever they want, or people can ask you whatever. It's a completely different world. But at that time, I had a weekly mailbag, and I would just post questions people asked, and I would answer them. And one of the questions someone asked was, would you ever consider writing a book? And I said, yeah, I think I could do it. I'd never done one before, but I had a degree in degree is actually in broadcast journalism, so it's not quite that, but I mean, I'd done a lot of writing, obviously on the site too. So I thought, yeah, I could probably do a book. So, but I have no idea who to contact or anything else. And they got me in touch with ECW Press out of Canada. And ECW Press and I have had a long relationship now, but it started off kind of strange. They had asked for the standard things whenever you were going to pitch to do a book with a real publisher. This was not a self-published book. I've not done those. It's always been ECW has always contracted me to do books. And so I went to them and they said, give us a synopsis of the book, target audience, give us a sample chapter, table of contents, whatever. So I gave them all that, and they got back to me really quick, and they're like, this is great. This is really funny. We think there would be an audience for it, and yeah, we want you to write this book. I said, okay, cool. They said, we'll get a contract to you in the next couple of weeks. So 2 weeks go by, no contract. So I emailed them and said, hey, are we still going to do this? Yep, we absolutely want to do this. Just give us another couple of weeks. So the next couple of weeks turned into the next couple of months, and then it wound up being about 6 months. And I remember saying to my wife, I said, I guess nothing's going to come of this book deal. Well, that's kind of a neat idea, But they eventually did come back and said, okay, here's the contract. We want you to do this. They said there's only one caveat to it. We are not going to call the book WrestleCrap. You need to come up with a new title. And I said, I'm a very easygoing person. I never get really ratcheted up or anything. I always try and stay very, very middle of the road. And so I'll never forget this. I got really angry, and I literally said, if you're not going to call it WrestleCrap, I ain't doing the book. Click. And I hung up, and I just was like, oh, my God, what did I just do? And I literally went to my wife, and I said, that book deal, they wanted me to do it, and I just threw it away. She's like, oh my gosh, what are you going to do? I said, I have no idea, because they're going to think I'm just like this, madman jerk now. And so they actually came back, a few days later, and they said, you know what? We thought about it. We talked about it. We want to do this book, and we'll keep the name WrestleCrap. The idea, I understand where they're coming from. They were really concerned that people wouldn't buy a book with the word crap in the title.
Yeah.
And there was, excuse me, I had heard horror stories when the first book came out of people going to like Barnes and Nobles or Borders or whatever and saying, yeah, I'm here I want to buy the WrestleCrap book. And they're like, oh my God, the people working there, oh, we would never sell a book like that. And they're like, oh no, wait, there it is. It's over on your shelf. Thanks. I mean, they didn't know. They didn't know if there was a risk to it, but it paid off. The first book, they were shocked, did as well as it did. I was shocked it did as well as it did. And so they came back and they asked for, would you consider doing a sequel? And I said, sure, but I don't want it to be I don't want it to be WrestleCrap 2. We can't do that. It's too soon. So we started batting ideas around of what would be a good subject at the time. And I remember thinking it was either going to be the death of ECW, because that had just happened fairly recently, the death of WCW, or I was going to do a book with a guy who's now at Dinosaur Dracula, and it was going to be toy crap, the very worst of toy he had as children. Unfortunately, we didn't do that book. I still want to do that book sometime. But we came back and they said, we really want to do the death of ECW. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, I can't do it. I can't do that book because that book would be really, really depressing because you had a lot of people that really wanted to make that work. They were trying really hard to make that work. And then I looked at WCW and I said, and again, like I said earlier in this interview, my whole thing is I always just want to make people laugh. And I remembered all those horrible Thunder episodes, and I was like, this book's going to be the funniest book ever, because I can just, go back and recall everything that happened on those, recap all those Thunder episodes. And I got a hold of Brian Alvarez, who at the time was not... like now everybody knows who Brian Alvarez is, Figure 4, F4WOnline.com, Figure 4 Daily, on Sirius Satellite and all that stuff. At the time, he was just doing a weekly newsletter called Figure 4 Weekly. And I was getting, like, this guy's really funny. He writes a lot like I do. And so I got a hold of him and said, hey, would you have any interest in helping me write The Death of ECW? And, God was blessed me very richly that I got to work on those books with Brian. I think he's absolutely just incredibly talented, incredibly driven. So I was very lucky to work with him on those. And lo and behold, our writing styles did mesh incredibly well to the point that a lot of people, whenever the first book came out, I mean, they had a really hard time. Like, how did you guys do this? Because it all flows together and it all sounds exactly like, it was written by one person. It wasn't written by two. But, when our styles are that similar, it really worked out. And like I said, I was very fortunate to be able to do that with him.
Absolutely, absolutely. And definitely, again, quick, shameless plug here for you. Check these books out. I mean, you can certainly find them. I mean, the internet is a crazy place.
Yeah, we had just done the 10th anniversary of Death of WCW. That was that book had done. People were really interested in that, and we were really thankful we got to go back and do that because we got to add in a lot. The Death of WCW 10th anniversary is like 40% larger than what the original was, and we had so much fun. Adding in. People were scared. At the time when we did that Death of WCW book, they were scared to talk to us, and it was really hard. Like even since the beginning, especially getting early interviews was so difficult. This would have been for for the website, even before any of the books hit, I always wanted to just talk with people. I always wanted to talk with Fred Ottman. Say, okay, tell me the story of getting a glittery Stormtrooper helmet and what they were telling you to do and how that failed. I always wanted that story, but it was impossible to get those because I would call people and say, hey, this is RD Reynolds. I'm with WrestleCrap.com. I write a site about the very worst in pro wrestling, and I thought of you. Wasn't a good sales pitch. So it was tricky, but over the years, people get what WrestleCrap's all about. They got what the original Death of WCW book was all about. So they would come back to us and say, yeah, I want to get my 2 cents in and tell you the real story that happened here.
Certainly, and I think that probably also helped a lot because you're like, I've always, had a lot of wonders and a lot of questions about this, and especially, and I was kind of in the same boat because with the whole Shockmaster thing, I was always just super curious. Like, I was like, why is that a thing? And actually, I actually had a great opportunity to talk to him, Fred Ottman, and he was, he's a really cool guy. He really is.
He's awesome. He is so awesome.
And, like, he's so open about it, but, like, from things I've heard, that he used to be kind of like, don't talk to me about that.
Yeah. Because I'll give you an idea. He really wouldn't, because one of the very first people that I ever got to talk with me was Earthquake John Tenta. And he was... Sorry, I always get a little choked up talking about John because I miss him so much. But John talked to us, and John actually wrote the foreword to the first book. Guy, and I was like, man, can you get me in touch with Fred? Can you get me in touch with Fred? And I'd talk to John quite a bit, and he'd always be like, yeah, I tried to, but he doesn't want to talk about it. And I was like, man, that's so strange. So it was really weird when years later, when he just kind of figured out, I can talk about this stuff. There's nothing wrong with this. And yeah, Fred's awesome. Quake was awesome. Just two of the nicest guys. That was always the thing, is I always wanted to, whenever I would write stuff on the site, I was always like, okay, I want everyone to understand I am not making fun of Fred Ottman, for falling through a wall. I want to make fun of the people that said, okay, Fred, this is what we're going to do with you. We want to put this Stormtrooper helmet on you, spray a bunch of silvery paint or whatever, and have you not able to see, walk through this quote-unquote brick wall, and hope things turn out well. That's what I always wanted. I just wanted that backstory, and I always wanted to get that out. It's never, as I've said countless times on the site, these guys that are doing these characters or storylines, they're just trying to put food on the table, for their families. And if someone, is going to pay me, $250,000 a year and say, okay, I want you to go out and pretend to be a shark, I'll be like, okay, where's my fins?
You're right. That's exactly right. Oh, man. So, yeah, so definitely, like I said, I feel like that was kind of like one of those first websites where, like, they were like, let's really talk about what's going on. And that's something I do admire about WrestleCrap, is that like I said, you are definitely different, but in a good way.
Well, thank you. Like I said, it's my whole thing. Whenever I first came up with the idea, is I wanted to do a wrestling website, and I knew that I was not going to have all the inside scoop. So I just wanted to do something different and make it something funny that people could laugh about, and that's where we went.
Absolutely. So as we kind of wrap up a little bit here, this is actually a first time for me even having to ask this question. I've done close to 50 interviews, and I've actually never, ever had to ask this question, which kind of surprises me. But in 2007, you were subject of an internet hoax claiming you had died.
Yeah.
And like I said,
yeah.
That's not something that I've ever had to ask somebody. And, I've heard of people like, oh, hey, this guy died, and especially in the early 2000s, you get those chain text messages like, oh, so-and-so died, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how did that come about?
It was on Wikipedia, and that's why whenever anyone says, well, it says on Wikipedia, da-da-da-da-da, whenever they want to quote Wikipedia, I'm always quick to say that site has declared me dead 3 times, so I don't know how much I trust it. But I was just sitting at home. I'll never forget, finding out about it. I was sitting at home with my wife, and we were watching something, and she answers the phone, and she's like, "No, what? No." And apparently the guy on the phone was like apologizing. "Oh my gosh, Mrs. Deal, I'm so sorry to hear about, RD. What happened?" And she's like, "What do you mean what happened?" He's like, "I read on the internet that he died." And she's like, "No, he's sitting right here. You want to talk to him?" that's how I found out. And it was the weirdest thing that someone had said I had died on Wikipedia. It's really, really strange. And then after the first one was I think it said like I had a heart attack or something. It was it sounded completely legit. It wasn't anything funny. Over the years, people have killed me off on there again, but it's like, he was choking on Fruity Pebbles or something, always something. It was always something a little more absurd. So yeah, the death hoax is, it was kind of comical, that after I got my wife calmed down, that I was not in fact dead. So it's a good thing I wasn't like out of town or something, that would have been really bad.
Yeah, and she's like, and I just now heard about this, like.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, but like I said, that's the first time I think I've ever had to ask another human being about whether or not about that kind of thing, like in my entire life. So
hopefully it'll be the last.
Yeah. I certainly hope so, but it's that's funny. That is funny. In a bad way, it's funny, but it's funny.
Yeah.
So, like we were talking about, I mean, ultimately with everything that you do on your website, everything that I do for like the podcast, ultimately it boils down to that we are wrestling fans, So,
right.
How much do you actually watch wrestling? A lot of people, you want to ask them, how much do you actually watch wrestling? Some people are like, well, I really don't watch wrestling at all, or I've not watched wrestling in 10 years. So nowadays, do you watch wrestling for fun, or do you just view it through the WrestleCrap perspective, trying to find those obscurities?
It's more through the WrestleCrap perspective. As I've gotten older, have a family now, it's not something I can dedicate 5 hours over you look at it. Like tonight, as we're recording this, there's pay-per-view, okay? So there would be 3 hours. Monday night, there would be 3 more, so you're looking at 6. Then you would have 2. You SmackDown on Tuesday. There's another 2. So there's 8 hours in the span of a very quick time frame that I would have to dedicate if I was watching it nonstop. So generally, what I do now is I catch the highlights on of a pay-per-view. Unless it's a major pay-per-view, I'll always watch the major pay-per-views, and I have a lot of fun watching the major pay-per-views, because I will do a live chat on Facebook. I'll just throw it up on my wall and say, okay, everybody, we're going to talk this pay-per-view, live. So like at WrestleMania, I will do that. Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, the big shows, I will wind up doing that still. Yeah. But a lot of the time, I'm just now, I love the WWE Network. Because I can go back now, before we were talking about it, I had to go to all these video stores and such. Now, so much of it is at my fingertips. With YouTube, so much of it is at my fingertips. So, like now, I really want to spend a lot of time just looking and just doing more research for the site, finding stuff that I was like, oh, yeah, it's, this one Thunder episode. That's the one thing I'm really upset it's not on the network. I actually, before they started throwing everything up on the network, someone had gotten me like copies of every episode of Thunder. That is so fun. I do wish that was up on the network though, so that everyone could just really enjoy those. But sometimes I will just binge watch Thunder, specifically Thunder from the year 2000.
That's just the best. That was the best, worst stuff ever.
I've actually heard some horror stories about like Thunder and like specifically from Dave. He over here at Dave Dynasty, he used to watch that kind of stuff all the time, and I'm a little too young for some of that stuff. Like I've gone back and watched it, but it was a little outside of my my age group there for that. So I was like, oh, I don't really remember that, but he'll tell me some fantastic stories.
Oh yeah. I can't wait. I don't know when you'll be posting this one, but the next major article I'm writing for WrestleCrap.com is from a Thunder episode where Chris Candido and Terry Funk had a hardcore match that wound up in a horse stable where Terry Funk's head almost got kicked off by a real live horse. So again, we were talking about how we wish we could always get the story. I really want the backstory of who thought, you know what, let's go into a horse stable where there's a live horse, start wrestling around in there, and see what that horse may do. Because whoever came up with that idea, I cannot even fathom. It sounds like something Terry Funk would have came up with, and I would like to just go, Terry, come on. This, Chainsaw Charlie, you have some bad ideas. Let's not be tempting fate.
Yeah, I was gonna be like, I mean, you've seen like those matches with him and Mick Foley, like in Japan, right?
Oh yeah,
like,
of course.
Like, nothing that he does surprises me. Anything I've ever seen of his does not surprise me.
Yeah, well, the one where this one it actually did surprise me because you have this big, like a little Shetland pony or anything. It's like it's full, thoroughbred. It's sitting in there, and it starts. Your body slamming somebody right by his hindquarters. What are you expecting him to do? And he just starts kicking. He kicks Funk right in the arm. And I mean, if it would have gone, if that horse would have, if that leg would have gone up another, 8-10 inches, he could have kicked Terry's head clean off. It was kind of scary, But I'll make fun of it. We'll all laugh about it, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, he's fine. He's still alive, right?
Yeah, that's right. He lived to tell the tale. Who cares?
Oh, man. Well, like I said, I love bringing people, having people come on here and talk to you because, they always have, like, especially people who aren't exactly, the cookie cutter, like, hey, I did this and this and this, They always have a lot of great stories, so you've had a lot of great stories. But hopefully you have a little extra put in you here. But what's one thing most of your fans don't know about you?
One thing that most of my fans don't know about me.
So, after having this entire conversation, I was actually excited for this question because I feel like it's going to be a good one.
This would probably be it. Is that my most famous book is The Death of WCW, and I've done it twice with Brian. Brian Alvarez and I have met in person exactly one time for about 10 minutes. Yet, we wrote 2 books with each other. We have spoken on the phone maybe 90 minutes total. Everything else has just been done via the wonders of the internet.
Oh, good Lord. That has to be like a feat of the amazing right there, because I can barely I can barely write something without having to like be right in front of Dave.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
that's what Brian and I did. It was we met one time. I'll never forget. He was actually in the state of Indiana. It was about 3 hours away from me. But I was like, okay, he's going to be working the show. I'm going to go up and I'm going to meet with him. So went up and met with him, and I'll never forget because there was a guy in a gorilla suit, and one of the only photos of Brian and I together, it's literally us leaning on a rail together, and in between us is a guy in a monkey suit for no reason whatsoever.
I honestly, for what you told me, I think that honestly exemplifies you guys as people.
Yeah, I think it probably does too. So
It's like paint a portrait. Here you go.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, man. Whew. Okay, so we're going to wind it down here. What are some social medias that people can follow you at, other than obviously WrestleCrap, because, people can go see you there? Any other social medias, though?
The best thing I always tell people to do is go to WrestleCrap.com. I have my social media links there. My Twitter is WrestleCrapRD. And I don't know what my Facebook is. It's probably WrestleCrapRD too, but I don't know that for a fact. So that's why I always point people, just go to WrestleCrap.com, and you'll probably, if you're a wrestling fan, I can almost guarantee you're going to find something you're going to like, and you're going to stumble upon, something stupid that you think you're the only one that remembers it. But there are other people that do, and unfortunately I've spent time to detail those obscurities for the world. So,
well, certainly. So everybody, like we said before, go check out the website, follow him on Twitter, follow him on his old social medias, do all that good stuff. Check it out, because like he said, you're gonna find something you like all the time.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much, RD, for coming on here and just like chit-chatting with me and just let me pick your brain a little bit, getting some funny stories out of you, because certainly, this has been a really fun interview. It's been an honor, and it's been a pleasure having you on here.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Come crack open a cold one and let Old Manser tell you a story.
King of Big Dog Style, Larry's and Light Beer, the king of the trailer court, your favorite wrestler of mine, me.
This is Warner's Wisdom with Mance Warner.
All right, people, red light's on. That means it's another edition of Warner's Wisdom with your favorite wrestler and mine. Dramatic pause. Me, Old Manser. You may know me as the King of Big Dog Style, the master of the pop-up headbutt, the leader of the Larry and Light Beer Tour. You can buy that t-shirt at ProWrestlingTees.com. Putting Old Manser, put Mance Warner, Larry, it's a Light Beer Tour right there. Beautiful t-shirt. You look real cool wearing it. Don't forget your nicknames there. Southern Psycho. And I'm sure I'll hit all the rest later on. I'm just checking in with y'all. This is the Dave Dynasty Show. Another edition of Warner's Wisdom. Yesterday, IWA Mid-South. I got to get a little plug in here. IWA Mid-South. It was the last show we were going to do down in Memphis, Indiana. It was the artist Jake Christ stepping in the ring with Old Manser. And I'm usually not the one to toot our own horn there, but toot. Old Manser and Jake tore it up out there. You can buy that DVD, or you get the, you got the DVD and the download DVD, get it on the intranet. Be on Smart Mark Video. I had to get that plug in there. Hell of a match. Now, back to business here. On Warner's Wisdom this week, Old Manser, I ain't gonna keep y'all here that long. 4th of July coming up. Kind of 4th of July weekend right now. And then next weekend, I celebrated all July because I love America, baby. So I'm gonna be drinking them light beers every weekend. Pretty much every day, I ain't gonna lie. Okay. Old Manser is at a show 2 weeks ago. Throat's killing me, people. Okay, Old Manser, backstage, get my boots on, my beautiful boots. Y'all know the deal. Get my boots from the same place I get my beautiful jackets, David Lopez. He hooked me up, sent them out to me. I wear them around, and I go to work in them. Nah. Old Manser's sitting backstage. Get my boots on. Knee pad up, knee pad down, knee pad up, knee pad down. Kid come up, young kid in the pro wrestling industry, come up to Old Manser. And he proceeds to ask Old Manser, Manser, can you give me some advice? Can you help me out? I go, sure thing, baby, take a seat. He goes to sit in the chair and goes, no. You sit on the floor. Old Manser still don't even sit in the chair, man. Those things are earned with time and knowledge. You don't just walk here and take a seat. Anywho. Old Master getting ready. Kid keep asking me questions. One of the questions that he proceeds to ask old Mancer is, Mancer, what makes you, man? What makes you old Mancer? Old Mancer was perplexed for a second with this question. And I already told the kid, keep your eyes open, your ears open, and your mouth shut. And I'll give you all the advice and wisdom and knowledge you need. But it keeps peppering me with them questions, man. It's like I'm in a bar room fighting, I'm getting peppered in a corner. Bop, 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 bop. So, I start to think to myself, because his question was, old Master, what makes you, man? And I'm thinking to myself, maybe I was thinking out loud. At this point, old Master has kind of lost his mind. Sometimes I think I'm thinking to myself, and really I'm talking out loud. It just happens. So anywho, I start thinking, do I tell him what makes old Mancer old Mancer? Do I just tell him all these nicknames? Do I go the King of Big Dog Style, the medium-sized man beast, the master of the pop-up headbutt, the Southern Psycho, Lariats and Light Beer, dramatic pause, dramatic pause, dramatic pause, wackadoo? Do I tell him all these nicknames? Old Mancer didn't say all the nicknames. I just went to taping up my fist. Start with my left fist. I'm taping it up. And the kid's watching me still. The rookie, he's sitting over there, rookie watching me tape up my fist. I get my left fist taped up, and then I move over to my right, taping up my right fist. And the kid's still just watching me. And then he goes, what are you doing there? Because I pulled out a Sharpie, right? I got my Sharpie marker. I usually use on my 8x10s. You can buy those too at the live events. I always got my 8x10s. I got my new t-shirt on me. I sell those. Beautiful pictures, 8x10s. Beautiful, beautiful picture. You just put it on your wall. Put it on your ceiling. Ladies, if you want that right there, I know you do. Go ahead and get them 8x10s. Anyways, back to my story. I'm taping up my fist, right? Go to my left hand, move over to my right hand, taping them up. Grab my Sharpie, I start writing on my left hand. And the kid goes, Mancer, what are you writing? What are you doing, man? So I tell him. I go, see this hand right here? I'm writing my old lady's name right there. And then I start to write on my other hand. He goes, what are you doing on that one? I go, see that one? That's my address right there. And he goes, at this point, he's kind of nervous and scared because he has been around Mancer for more than 5 minutes, and usually that occurs and people start thinking, this man's insane. So anywho, old lady, name on this hand, my address on my other hand. And I proceed to tell the kid, see, brother, I write this on this hand and this on this hand, and then I put these beautiful boots on, and I walk out into the ring, into Mancer's ring. That's my ring. That's where I go to work. I step on in that ring, and I go work. And I put the boots on people. These beautiful boots. I'm wearing them right now, people. I still ain't taking them off. I put the boots to these people. Old Mancer gonna hit a big boot, a big lariat, a pop-up headbutt, a big wackadoo. I'm gonna beat somebody down. Then I'm gonna get that W. I know this is a podcast, but I'm spelling it out for you right here with my finger here. I'm gonna get that W. Then old Mancer gonna go to the pay window. After I get to that pay window, I'm gonna get my green and my white. My green and my white. Do y'all hear that? That's my green. That's my paydays. I'm gonna get my green and my white envelope, get back in my truck. I'm gonna head home. And the kid's still looking at me. He's horrified at this point. Old Mancer goes to work in that ring. I damn near lose my mind every night. I get in a mental state where I don't remember nothing, or sometimes I just get knocked loopy, man. Throwing these headbutts, going nose to nose with some of the greats in the pro wrestling industry, man. Throwing in punches. Sometimes you get that bell rung. So when old Master pulls up my beautiful truck, I'm looking at it right now through the window. I pull up in my beautiful truck to my home. How do you think I got there? On the drive home, I gotta look at my right hand. I gotta remember where my address is, right? If I didn't have that on my hand, I wouldn't remember where I was supposed to be going. Old Master looks at his hand, remembers my address. I head on home. Old Master heads home. Walk up to the door. I always knock at a door with my left hand. While I'm knocking at that door, my old lady answers the door. And I take a brief peek at my left hand to remember her name on certain nights. Now, this don't happen every night, but there's times where old Master don't remember where my home is. Even though I'm the king of the trailer court, baby, I forget stuff. I lost my mind at this point. I get in that mental rage and I forget everything. And then I get home, I gotta look at my other hand to remember my old lady's name. Because the last thing you need coming home late is heat. You get some heat for saying the wrong thing. You catch some heat. Let's be honest. If you act like old Master does 24/7, brother, I got heat everywhere. And the last thing I need is be sleeping on my couch because I said the wrong thing when I got home, right? So, the moral of the story is, everybody wants to get into pro wrestling. Not everybody wants to try to make it, right? There's a lot of people that's cool with having a poster and having their face on it, because at the end of the night they could go out and try to get a little something from some of the rats out in the crowd, right? There's a lot of people in this industry that want to just run around and say they're a pro wrestler, but they don't put in no work. You don't see them at no seminars. You don't see them hitting the road. You don't see them out there trying to sell merch. There's this little wisdom here, people. You can take it or you can leave it. Then there's other people in this industry that do this stuff every single day. They get in their beautiful trucks, and maybe their beautiful car, maybe their beautiful bicycle, I don't know, boat, plane, train, any type of automobile they may have, and they make times. And they drive 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 hours to get to a show, right? There's just different type of people in this industry, man. So it all comes down to, are you willing to have to take them fists up, put them boots on, get in that ring and go to work? Not just to be on a poster, not just to say that you are a pro wrestler, but to get out there and put the boots and the fist, and in my case, the headbutts, to work and hit the pay window and get that W. Dramatic pause, dramatic pause, dramatic pause. Now, until next time, this has been another edition of the Warner's Wisdom here on the Dave Dynasty Show. The best part of the Dave Dynasty Show. Wink, wink. You know, Master loves you, Dave. Warner's Wisdom. Until next time, you people enjoy the weekend. Drink them light beers. Try to have a good weekend. Not going to be as good as old Masters, but who can be? I'll see y'all next week.
Hey, Dave Dynasty here for the Tommy Wildfire Rich School of Wrestling in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. You know, I've spent years in the wrestling business, from wrestler to promoter, and now as the host of the Dave Dynasty Show. To be successful in the wrestling business, solid training from experienced instructors is mandatory if you're going to make it today. And that's what you'll get at the Tommy Wildfire Ridge School of Wrestling. Not only instruction from former NWA World Heavyweight Champion Tommy Wildfire Ridge, but many other big-name wrestlers, managers, and referees. And it gets better. Tommy Wildfire Ridge School of Wrestling will provide in-ring training and personal character training with all practices recorded on high-definition cameras. They have over 2 tons of weightlifting equipment and tanning beds located in an indoor sports facility that will host monthly wrestling events, bringing in names big enough to ensure that you, as a beginning student, will get seen. This school has it all. For anyone interested in the Tommy Wildfire Ridge School of Wrestling, call 336-862-5528 today. Once again, that is 336-862-5528. Ask for Chris, and you will immediately be on your way to your career in the wrestling business. Once again, call Chris at the Tommy Wildfire Ridge School of Wrestling at 336-862-5528. And welcome back. This is Dave Dynasty. You are listening to the Dave Dynasty Show. How fun was that, huh? How fun. You know, anybody that gets out there and starts a site and does all this stuff under the banner of WrestleCrap, that's got to be a fun guy, right? What a guy. RD Reynolds, great guy, great interview. Go out and Google and check him out. Look up, visit WrestleCrap.com. Order some book, buy his books. It's great. It's great stuff. The Death of WCW, great book. Get out there and support RD. Right? That's what it's all about. So, we thank him for coming on. Excuse me. Once again, our new sponsor, the Tommy Wildfire Ridge School of Wrestling. Check them out. Also, call Chris at the school. Get signed up today and begin your path to your career in professional wrestling, and do it the right way. We're not sure exactly who's going to be on next week because we had some things planned out, and then I had another potential interview kind of fall in my lap that we're going to try to knock out this week, and if so, they will be the guest. Can't say because it's, again, not confirmed. Nothing happened, but I'm very, very excited. It's always cool when you're exchanging text messages with someone that you watched on television as a child. Going to be a great one. We're going to get the interview done. I'm hoping we can get it done soon so we can have him on next week. But we'll see. So just check out for the announcements later this week on who's going to be on the show next week. That's all we got for this week. Thank you to Mance Warner for dropping that wisdom again. Mance is the future of wrestling, especially Midwest wrestling, getting all kinds of props all over the place. Check out Mance. He's a great talent. Not just a great talker, which he is a great talker, but he is a great talent in the ring. He's going to be a big star someday. And you can say, I remember when I listened to him on the Dave Dynasty Show. Isn't that great? We're out of time. We're going to see you next week. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for subscribing, sharing, supporting, and following us. Until next week, be good, be safe, be independent, and keep on growing. See ya.